Warning: this video contains depictions of substance use, self-harm, violence, and strong language, which may be triggering for some viewers. What is it that makes a director influential? Is it a long list of awards and box office successes? Is it the way they captivate an audience and bring a story to life? Or is it more technical than that, focusing on camera angles or editing choices? You could give 5 different directors the same script and they would all create a different movie. Which is why, in my opinion, one of the most influential directors of our generation, and in the drama genre, is Catherine Hardwicke. You may or may not know her name, but you definitely know her films. But before we get into that, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. Catherine Hardwicke was born on October 21st, 1955 in Cameron, Texas. She's an American film director, production designer, and producer. However, that wasn't always the case. Before pursuing her career in film, Catherine was an architect. She was feeling very limited by her current career, so she moved to Los Angeles to attend UCLA Film School in her late 20s. She didn't actually direct her first feature-length film until she was 48 years old, which was over a decade after she finished film school. Now, most people would likely have given up after, pursuing directing a film for over 10 years, and myself included, but she wanted it, and she kept at it until she did it, and she created some of the most powerful films that I've ever seen. In an interview, which I'm going to show a clip of in just a second, she mentions that growing up in South Texas, there wasn't a lot of exposure to film. It was a very rural area that she grew up in, and basically she just watched what was at the local theater, which was a lot of westerns or very generic things that weren't controversial, very mainstream type movies. But she mentioned she's always been a very creative person, and a few of these films and a select few directors really made her want to bring stories to life.
I grew up in South Texas, and it's not really a film area. It's very rural. My dad's a farmer, so I didn't see a lot of films, mostly like some Sergio Leone when I was growing up. It's about all our theater showed. And so I'd really only seen some mainstream films until I saw a movie called Out of the Blue, which was directed by Dennis Hopper. And when I saw that, that was the thing that just opened my eyes to an indie film, an independent film, that you could see a movie that looked very gritty and real and raw, and it felt in some ways, authentic and personal, and I'd never seen anything like that before.
The grittiness that Catherine mentions in that interview is something that's become a staple in her movies, especially her older ones from the early 2000s, and it mainly focuses on the dark themes such as substance use, self-harm, a lot of toxic family environments, and just stuff that really isn't talked about a whole lot, especially during that time, and just the teen angst and growing up and how to navigate everything when you're in those environments.
I mean, you cheat, you lie, you steal.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Where do you think I learned all this shit from?
Tracy was playing Barbies before she met Evie.
What, did she teach you how to beat the crap out of her as well?
Don't even start with me. I've seen the bruises, little one.
What the hell did you tell her, Evie?
Come here. What about this?
What the fuck? We were just goofing!
Tracy didn't hit her. Yes, she did.
I don't believe this shit! She hit me too!
And look at this now.
Don't you dare! No,
Your hands
please!
off her.
Don't, please!
She got it.
It's none of your business, you fucking Frankenstein!
Catherine's style of filmmaking is very much what you would expect of an indie director. There's a lot of close-ups and motion shots showing the emotion of the actors in the scene and making you feel like you're along for the ride with the actor. Her use of handheld cameras make the film have an unpolished, real-life aspect, and I think that is exactly what she was going for. If you look how she utilizes light in her films, it's very dark, has very cool tones, and I think that just adds to the grittiness and the point she's trying to get across in her films. Another notable thing about Catherine is her repeat casting of Nikki Reed, who stars in all 3 of her most notable films from the early 2000s. Catherine has known Nikki Reed since Nikki's childhood, and they actually co-wrote the screenplay for 13 together in 6 days when Nikki was 13 herself.
In 6 days, we did the first draft, and then I was like, we are going to make this while Nikki is still 13, and I was like, we're going to make it in the next 4 months, and everyone's like, what, are you nuts? And I was just determined.
Catherine stated in an interview that Nikki was making some questionable decisions and heading down a not so great path, so they put her focus into acting, and that is essentially how 13 was created.
You know, she had a personal crisis, turning 13, junior high, peer pressure, freak out, you know, drugs, sex, rock and roll. And I was just trying to help her, you know, go through this and figure out, you know, how she could do something creative instead of destructive with her life. And, you know, let's go learn how to surf and go to museums, and what do you really want to do? And she said she wanted to act. And, you know, I was like devastated, like, that's going to make you worse and more vain, you know.
Now that we have some background on Catherine and her filmmaking style, let's get into my favorite part, her films. The first film I'm going to cover is the 2003 coming-of-age drama 13. 13 follows Tracy, who is a 13-year-old girl just trying to navigate the ups and downs of middle school. Tracy befriends Evie, who is the most popular girl in school with a very bad reputation. Throughout the film, you see Tracy slowly start to lose who she is due to this friendship. She starts taking drugs, going to parties, failing out of school, cutting, and basically just doing everything that your parents warn you not to do, which in turn turns her into the most toxic version of herself. Towards the end of the film, Evie's guardian Brooke and Tracy's mom find their stash of drugs, alcohol, paraphernalia, and Evie basically places the blame on Tracy, saying she's the one that instigated it. There's a huge blowout fight between all four of them, and Tracy's mom finds out that she is cutting, and the film ends with Tracy's mom basically telling her everything is going to be okay. This film was so impactful for so many reasons because it is real and it does happen. I remember watching this film when I was 13 with my mom, and she started crying, and I couldn't understand why at the time because it's not like I was doing it, but she said that was her biggest fear. This film was such a great tool for parents to sit down and talk with their kids about the real world issues going on and the things that can happen when you fall into the wrong crowd. In 2020, Catherine Hardwicke and the lead actresses Nikki Reed, who played Evie, and Evan Rachel Wood, who played Tracy, sat down to talk about why 13 is still relevant almost 2 decades later.
I think that this movie still speaks to people because it's a theme that doesn't have a time period attached to it, or I mean, like, why does Romeo and Juliet, why does that speak to people still? Why does young love and, you know, heartache and firsts really speak to people? And I think it's because you don't get them again, and so we spend our whole lives chasing our firsts. And that first thing that we had, that we experienced, that love, that friendship, that sense of discovery and figuring out who you are, and I've never done this before, and it's so dangerous, and it's so exhilarating, and it's so bad, and I'm so upset over it, and everything is so heightened, and it's very specific to that time period, and I think it just reminds people of what it feels like to be alive. I mean, I don't know if there will ever be anything quite like it.
No, there can't really be the same exact thing.
It was kind of just magic when it happened, you know?
With the rise of social media, it's so much easier to share content, which validates 13's relevance still, as it has 1.3 billion engagements on TikTok. Though 13 was Catherine's first film she ever directed, it is still considered her best film. She won 5 different awards and received 11 nominations for 13 alone, but the reception was not always positive for 13. It was very controversial just due to the actors' ages and the content that was covered in the film. The next film I'm going to talk about is the 2008 teen romance drama Twilight. It was originally a book by Stephanie Meyer, and it's the first book in a 5-book series. And it is about a girl named Bella. She is in high school, and she moves from Arizona, where she lives with her mom, to Forks, Washington with her dad. In the book, Bella is described as very shy and very socially awkward, and that comes across so well in the film. They chose Kristen Stewart to play Bella, and I don't think there could have been a better actress to play her. But back to the plot of the movie, Bella moves to Forks, and on the first day of school, everybody notices her because she's the new kid, and they don't really get new students there very often. Fast forward a few scenes, and we see Bella in the cafeteria with a group of her friends. The camera pans to the entrance of the cafeteria, and in walk a group of 5 students. The camera zooms in for a close-up on each of their faces, letting you know that they are going to be an important part of the story. The last close-up is of Edward Cullen, and he is going to be the love interest of Bella, but I will get to that in a minute. A little later in the film, Bella is standing by her truck in the student parking lot, and one of the other students' van ends up sliding out of control on ice. And somehow, Edward miraculously is able to put himself in between the truck and the van and save her. Bella has no idea how this is humanly possible, so for the next few scenes in the film, you see her digging into the history of the town and kind of just trying to figure out what's going on with the Cullen family. For those who have read the books, this isn't a surprise, but Bella finds out that Edward and his entire family are vampires. The rest of the film is Bella and Edward and their relationship and how she interacts with his family and kind of learning about what it is to be a vampire. A little over halfway through the film, Bella is playing baseball with the Cullen family, and up walks a group of nomad vampires. And since she's still human, that's very dangerous for her. And so they tried to hide her scent and keep her safe. Well, one of the nomads ends up being a tracker and fixates on her scent. And the rest of the movie is basically them trying to keep Bella safe and keep this nomad vampire named James away from her, as well as keep her friends and family in the dark about what's really going on. The Cullen family ends up splitting up into groups, some taking Bella, some keeping her family safe, and the others leading the tracker away from Bella. The tracker ends up finding Bella, lures her to her old dance studio, and attempts to kill her. Something that will likely not shock anyone. The Cullens show up, save the day, but Bella was bitten by James. So Edward has to make a decision, either let Bella turn into a vampire or attempt to suck the venom out without killing her. In the following scene after this, you see Bella wake up in the hospital with her mom, and the Cullens had to lie to her parents and say that she came to see Edward and fell down the stairs and broke her leg. Fast forward to the final scenes of the movie, you see Bella and Edward at prom, and Bella asks for him to turn her into a vampire. The camera then pans away, leaving them dancing underneath a gazebo, to a shot of a woman staring at them through a window. This woman happens to be Victoria, the other nomad vampire that was with James. This is then set up for the second film. While this film is very different from what Catherine had done previously, it still showcases a lot of the elements she used in those indie films. Twilight still has that very dark feeling, the very dark color schemes, very cool blues, and very, well, considering it's vampires, it's dark elements. Twilight was such a cultural phenomenon that no one ever knew that it was going to get as big as it did. The actors, the directors, the producers, no one thought it would make as much money or get as big as it did. And though Stephanie Meyer's books already had a decent following online, it did not prepare them for what it became. Catherine Hardwicke actually received 5 separate scripts from Summit Entertainment and threw all of them in the trash. Yes, Twilight was one of them. Had Catherine Hardwicke left that script in the trash, either A, Twilight wouldn't exist, or B, it would be directed by somebody else, and I don't think it would have had the impact that it did. Catherine Hardwicke actually only directed the first installment of the franchise. And while the other installments of the franchise are very good, I really do like the movies, nothing will ever be the first one. I hope this video has shown you how much of an impact Catherine's work has made, not only in the drama genre, but just in general. Her films are just magic. And not only are her films influential in the drama genre, they're influential to women. She's a woman director in a very male-dominated position. If you've made it this far, I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video, and I hope that this makes you want to watch one of her movies.